We are here with the Help Hope Heroes podcast.
Stevens Center, for me, they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
Recorded live at a homeless shelter.
I basically reinvented myself with the Stevens Center.
Our clients are the homeless, the addicted, those in poverty.
We fight the good fight.
Tear down some stigmas.
They taught me those life skills that I didn't have.
What does Help Hope Heroes mean to you?
If you come to the Stevens Center, you will be changed in a really good way.
All right, here we are with another episode of the Help Hope Heroes podcast. The podcast recorded live at a homeless shelter in South Omaha. It's been a while since we've had one of these out, and we are very excited to have a special guest with us today. John, as I know him, Czapenski.
Right.
Who are you, John?
John. I am John Czapenski. I've been saved and set free from the bondages of addiction for the last 12 and a half years. I am the owner and counselor at Halo Counseling Center, a little agency we've had established for the last 4.5 years now. It's located right off of 90th and L Street. We do some intensive outpatient and outpatient treatment.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very good description.
Thank you.
You practiced that.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
like
good.
I went to sleep and, I was just practicing before I went to bed. I'm like, okay.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So just a little more about Halo. You said you do counseling services. What type of counseling are you offering at Halo?
We specialize in alcohol and drug treatment. Specifically, we don't have a mental health element yet. That will be the future of Halo. We've got daytime intensive outpatient groups, which makes us a little unique. We've got a nighttime option as well. We see folks across the spectrum. We've got Douglas County probation folks, Sarpy County probation folks, drug court, people there voluntarily, things like that.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Sounds like you are busy.
Very busy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, we start off by saying, as I know you, John. What's that about? Where'd you get that nickname?
Like when you're in trouble as a youngster and for my case, it was my mom. She would pop off like every one of my names and some. So my dad, I'm actually John Czapenski III. So my father shared the same name, or I shared it with him. And so anytime I was in trouble, John, go clean up your mess or do whatever, So that's where it originated from. And it continued on, as you know, through high school. And even today, I kind of tried to bury that name because it became very much a street name. So I tried to bury that name for a period of time. And when I was in treatment, the pastor, one of the program directors there, started calling me John. And I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it. I can't get rid of it. So it took on a whole new meaning, and here it is today.
So tell me why you wanted to bury that, though. I mean, just like were you ready to be Jonathan? Or, was it an adult thing? What?
It was just a lot of negative connotation to it, if I was in trouble, John, come clean up your mess, or, hey, John, what's up? You got whatever, and, it had negativity to it, and I didn't want to have that. But every time I run into somebody from high school, see folks, I even changed my Facebook name to it. So
you got to be found, right?
Yeah, I got to be found. So it's just there. It's who I am. And, I've embraced both sides of it.
Well, I know I was glad you had that as your Facebook name because I tried spelling Czapenski. Good luck. CZ, right?
CZ,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you already mentioned that you were free from the, what'd you call that?
Bondages of addiction. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, that was a phrase we used in at the Williams Prepared Place, 2006, 2007 when I was down there. So yeah, love that phrase. I hold on to it today.
So tell me, how did you get clean and sober? What was your rock bottom?
Rock bottom for me was stealing money out of my dying father's wallet.
Ooh.
And, yeah. It was pretty rough. He was dying in a hospital, and I was up to no good. And I was doing whatever it took to get high. I didn't care who I mowed over. I didn't care what I had to do. I just did it. And that was a pretty low time for me. He ended up passing away a day before my birthday, 2005. And so things
Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And things got really bad for me after that. He was kind of my rock, he was the guy I went to for everything, and he was gone. So I was homeless at the time and had nothing. Was backpacking it through Ralston, sleeping in churches or parks or behind buildings. And
No way. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was really, really bad for a long time. I got an invitation to move in with a gentleman, about a year later. Happened to be my drug dealer. So I was like,
Why not?
Why
Yeah.
not? This is perfect. Yeah, I'm going to move in with this guy. I'm going to have all the drugs I want, and life is going to be grand.
Yeah.
And it was. I can't sit here and say it wasn't. We lived a high life. We did a lot of crazy things. But September 12, 2006, that all came to a screeching halt as police raided the apartment and put me in cuffs and charged me with possession with intent to deliver an ounce of meth and
Oh man.
guns in the apartment and the whole works. It was pretty rough. So
Drugs and guns.
drugs, guns, unknown chemicals, all kinds of weird stuff. So stuff I didn't even know was in there. But so that put a screeching halt to it. But I tell you what, like one of the most peaceful moments I can recall from that period of time was that very moment. I saw, we had cameras all over the apartment, of course, and did a lot of good. But so we had one of the cameras on, and I see my roommate pull in. He backs out and it takes off real quick, and I was like, "What the hell is that all about?" And I go stand outside. We're on the third floor, and I'm standing outside, and I just hear this thunder, boom, and here comes all the, everybody down, hands up, whatever. Well, I'm standing out on the balcony, and it was like slow motion. I even get goosebumps just thinking about it now. But I laid down, just quiet, slow, laid down, and there was just this sweet voice that said it's over. And I was at total peace, of course, until a 250-pound cop jumped on my back and pointed a machine gun at my head. But yeah, I knew at that moment that this thing was over, and I wanted it to end so bad. Tried different petty attempts at getting sober, running from it and whatnot, never worked out. But here was my opportunity, and yeah, it started there. That was definitely rock bottom for me.
So they take you straight to jail?
Took me straight to jail. One of the more bonehead things I've done in life. I get into jail, and they're like, "Well, are you suicidal?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to die." They're like, "Okay,
God.
we'll get you taken care of real quick." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So they take me up to this room, strip me down butt naked, hand me a towel, basically, and I sat in there for 4 days thinking about what had just happened. So that was a wild start to it.
Douglas County?
Douglas County, yep, was in there for a little bit. I went to court a couple months later, and I was sitting downstairs at the courthouse, and my attorney comes to the door, and he says, "John, I got good news and bad news." Let's start with the good news. What do we got? He goes, "John, the state's going to drop the charges." I'm like, hallelujah. Wait, what's the bad news? Well, the FBI is going to pick up your case.
Federal,
yeah. So that was a big deal. I went back to the Douglas County after that, and of course all the people, what happened? I got indicted, and you're going to prison for like 10 years. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
So it got very real, and I got really depressed in that moment. But one decision that I made while I was in there was to, I took a look at life. I'm 26 years old. What have I done up to this point? I graduated high school a year late. I've accomplished nothing. I was homeless. I was a bum. I was not working hard. I didn't want to work hard. I was lazy, and I wanted everything for free. And so I knew at that time I didn't want to be that guy anymore. So I made the decision while I was in jail, like, okay, well, there's a different side to this life. How do I get there? I want to try that. I want to see if I can, succeed, excel, on this other side of life. So, I started doing some different things. I got into like a programming mod while I was in jail. Started going to church, AA meetings, writing, doing some things that I knew I was good at prior to all this stuff, unraveling.
Wow. So, all right. So at this point, when you're finding all these programs and you're in jail, how long were you in jail when you finally made that decision to, let's try these things I know I'm good at. Let's get involved with some things.
It took me about 45 days to get clear-headed-ish again.
And during that 45 days, you're awaiting trial?
Yeah, I had no clue what was going on. I was in and out of court a few times, was arraigned, bond set, come back, wait. Can I get out? No. FBI picks up the case. Can I get out? Definitely no. And so I'm just stuck in there. And for the first 45 days, I really just slept. Honestly, I'd wake up, eat, go back to sleep, wake up, eat, go back to sleep.
Lots of withdrawals, probably. I mean,
Lots
you'd been
of-
on chemicals for so long.
Right. Yeah, a lot of withdrawals, a lot of fatigue. I think it was 182 pounds when I checked into jail, which for me is I'm 100 or 270 pounds now. So naturally, I'm probably should be about 240.
Yeah.
So of course, at the time, I thought I was in great shape. Oh, look at me. you know. But so I made that decision, and a lot of amazing things began to happen. I went out at night. We would go and pray together with the guys in the mod, and I'd never done that. I'd never prayed out loud. I never prayed really at all in my life. And so at that point, some different things started happening. Now, it was a process. I got into a fight, and I was in Max 2 for about 7 days. Well, and this lady comes and sees me.
What is Max 2? Sorry.
That's like jail for jail, or jail in jail.
Okay.
So you only get out, once every, or for a half hour every 24 hours or something like that. So you are locked up while you're locked up.
Isolation.
Right. Yeah, it makes regular jail look pretty awesome. So I go and I get an evaluation. Somebody had paid for a drug and alcohol evaluation for me. So, this lady comes in and is talking to me. Well, I haven't talked to anybody in like 4 days. So I'm like, There you go.
Yeah.
This is John. And, she was there for like 3 hours. I feel sorry for the lady, but got that. So that got the treatment ball rolling. And I'd never done any treatment in my life. And on December 20th of that year, I got a visit. I just went to court like the week prior to federal court, and they're like, we're not letting you out. We're not doing anything. Okay. So December 20th, I have an attorney visit. So they say, and I was like, I just went to court. What's going on here? All right, whatever. So I go down to the little room there, and, here comes this guy, and, in sweatpants and a gold chain. And I'm like, what?
As a lawyer?
No, not a lawyer. I was a program director and pastor at an agency here in Omaha, former agency here in Omaha. And, I was just baffled. I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And he comes in and he sits down and he says, I'm so-and-so, and, I'm here to interview a few guys for our treatment program. I'm like, thinking maybe it was like Nova or something like that. And he said the treatment agency name, and I was like, never heard of it. Of course, I wasn't really into treatment at that point in my life. But he comes in, says he's got 4 guys to screen, and it's a Christian program, very small program here in Omaha. And he asked me what I know about the Bible, what I know about God. Perfect timing, Pastor. Well, I just happen to read, Genesis and Exodus and Leviticus, and I don't understand numbers, so I skipped that and went to the New Testament. And, I started asking him questions, and he kind of sat back and laughed. And, we sat down, prayed. He asked me if I was ready to do this or wanting to do this. I said, absolutely, Pastor. And he said, you know what? I got my guy. I'm not even going to screen the other 3 guys.
Wow.
So we're going to get you out of here and get you into treatment. I'm going to put the paperwork in, and we'll see what happens.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, when he said put in paperwork, I assumed it was going to be a month or something like that before this happens. 4 hours later, I'm standing out downtown outside of the federal court building waiting for a treatment bus to come and pick me up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's, I've heard quite a few stories around here and on the podcast even.
Right.
Nothing like that.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So all told, how much time were you in the jail until that happened? Like
4.5 months-ish, I think, something like that.
For a guy looking at what, 10 to 20?
10,
maybe
yeah.
even, 10
Yeah,
years?
the first, I sat down with my attorney. We were in this little box and a little screen in front of us. This little squirrely guy comes in. He's all of 90 pounds and drank about 2.5 pots of coffee before he came in. And he's whispering and went on, John, you gotta trust me right now. This is the FBI. And he's looking around, and I'm like, bro, this is not comfortable.
Making you paranoid.
Making me even more paranoid. But he, and he opens up this giant book and he goes, okay, your charges are, you're at a class or category 34. Your charges are down here. You're looking at 120 months. I'm like,
Wow.
whoa, 100, that's 10 years.
Yep.
Wow.
So out of the apartment, was it just you that got in all this trouble, or other people?
There
got in
was
trouble too?
I ended up having a co-conspirator. He was the guy, and I was the other guy, the right hand guy, whatever you wanted to call it. So he got into some trouble. They ended up charging him with all the guns and basically everything in there. I got the conspiracy portion of it, so I didn't get as much as he did. Thank God.
Yeah.
So,
But literally, thank God in this situation. And you said this was a Nova Treatment Center? Or what's the name of the center that came and got you out like that?
Sure. It was Williams Prepared Place at the time. They are no longer in operation, but Pastor Bruce Williams was the man.
Still know him?
Oh yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
So that's very interesting to me. It sounds like it's not a drug court then at that point, because I hear a lot of stories of people getting sent to treatment instead of jail because of drug court,
Right.
nonviolent offenders.
Right. This was very much pre-sentence, so they wouldn't give me the opportunity to. They wouldn't just release me on like my own recognizance. They weren't going to do that. They deemed me a flight risk for whatever reason. But they'll give people an opportunity. Here's some rope. Let's see what you do with it. And so treatment at that point is the only option. As long as you're in a controlled environment, they're cool with that. So at the time, Williams Prepared Place was a minimum year-long program, inpatient. So when I was told that, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do this. I was really excited about it. You hear a year, and I tell people like at my agency, like you're probably going to be here for about 4 or 5 months, and they're, what?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I didn't sign up for this or whatever,
And that's outpatient.
That's outpatient, yeah. So then I get a chance to share my story, and I think that gives them a little ease or whatever. But a year is what I needed, and probably even beyond that. When I got in there, I thought this was going to be the easiest thing of all time, because in my brain, I'm done with meth. There's no chance of me returning to it. I'm done. And that portion of it was easy, but then character defects began to fly, and I really began to understand why I did the things that I did, why I was using drugs the way I was doing. And all of those, character traits were still there, that I had to work on. I still wanted easy things. I still wanted to, cruise through life. I still wanted to be handed, everything. And that wasn't how it worked there. You worked your butt off, and otherwise you suffer some consequence.
Now, you say work, you mean work on yourself, work on the program, or did they have chores for you every day? Just give me an idea of what that inpatient program felt like. What was that like living
Sure.
there?
It was a co-ed facility, so the women and men were very much separated. I think there was 10 female rooms and 11 male rooms. The setup was beautiful. You got your own studio apartment, which was great. Walk into this place, there's my bed, I've got a stove, I've got my own bathroom, I don't have to wear shower shoes anymore.
Yeah.
But to the program, very much working on very much working on yourself. You're constantly seeing counselors. You're constantly in meetings, and you were expected to work. There was a little week-long honeymoon period where you could just kind of sit back and really do nothing, watch some TV, and just get acclimated with everything. But after that, it was like, okay, we got you a job lined up at some plaster company or whatever. You're going to start working there. I don't know anything about plaster.
Yeah.
So actually, my first job, I self-sabotaged and was sick, because I hated it. And I came back one day. The HR people or whatever called the pastor and let him know they let me go because I missed so much time. And he pulls me in the office. He goes, "John, I know what your problem is. You're lazy." And usually I'd get offended, but at this point I was like, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "John, if you lose another job again, you're going back to jail." Okay. What's my next option here? He goes, "You're going to go work at Deaf and Ball. You're going to throw some trash."
Yeah.
So dead of winter, I would assume that year it snowed, 55 feet or something like that. It felt like. But dead of winter, I'm on the back of a truck, running up and down streets, throwing trash cans, falling down, almost getting ran over. But it was a great, great life lesson for me. So on a daily basis, I'm getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, taking the bus down to Deaf and Bob, working, getting home, eating, showering, eating, and then, programming from 6 to 9 pretty much every day. And again, a very much Christian-based facility. So on like Wednesday nights, we're doing Bible study. Sunday, mandatory church. We're there, but that was it for me. I had no spiritual life prior to any of this, and now I had one.
Yeah,
now I had an understanding of God.
And you had structure.
Structure.
Is that the first time in your life you had real structure outside of high school, maybe?
Oh, high school.
Because even high school,
I had no structure
right? Yeah.
whatsoever. Yeah. First time in my life, it was like, you're doing this from this time, you get off, you do this. And, honestly, like that, God and structure was just the bread and butter of my programming. Like those are all things that I never had. And those are things that I carry with me today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I haven't quite heard a story like this. And so that was a year long.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a graduation that you're working towards? And if it would have taken longer than a year, could you have stayed there longer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there were some guys there there was one guy there that had been there for 2 years.
Okay.
He was working kind of a different program, but his case was ongoing and they wanted him to stay there.
Yeah.
So he stayed there. So I'm there for, I think it was 11 and a half months. I was kind of the golden boy, so I got done a little bit early. In the meanwhile, I'd go to court every 4 or 5 months or something like that. There was eventually a plea deal for 5 years, 6 months. So it was about halfway through my treatment, and I'm like, they're like, sign on the dotted line, accept responsibility, do this, do that, and we'll be done with this. I'm like, well, that beats 10 years, so let's do it. So I sign, accept all responsibility, case closed. So I had a sentencing scheduled for the week after my graduation. Mm-hmm. So I graduate, and Pastor Bruce and I go down to the federal courthouse. Now, this whole year, you talk about letting go and letting God. That's tough. When you've got 10 years looming over your head in a federal penitentiary, that's a tough notion. So, for a year, I was carrying around this burden, or this weight, and doing anything and everything I could to cope, which actually taught me a lot later on in life. Mm-hmm. So sentencing day comes up, and I get in there, and me and Pastor, we pray out in the parking lot, and like this weight gone.
You would actually let go and let God.
Yeah. In that very moment, like no fear, no nothing. Like I was energized. I was ready to take this on. I was ready to be done with this. So we go into court, and I haven't talked to my attorney in like 5 months. I'm like, is this guy even going to show up? What's going to happen? So he shows up, and he's amazing, and he runs down the last 11 and a half months of my life like he was there. And the pastor gets up on the stand, he talks, and the U.S. attorney gets up, and she's like, well, your program sucks, basically, and you guys just graduate people. And he was like, no, that's not how we work. So the judge stopped the whole thing. He goes, Pastor, you've been here on a number of occasions for a number of folks. Where do you rank this guy? Top 2. He says top 2.
That's incredible.
I was like, wow. And I think I know who number 1 was, or maybe number 2, but he was my sponsor at the time.
Yeah.
So, so the judge was like, all right, John, I've heard enough. Here's the deal. He goes, we have the authority now to go below, mandatory minimums. That all changed about a year ago.
Lucky.
Yeah, very blessed.
Yep.
So he says, he goes, John, had you done an average job, I was thinking about 3 years today. You did better than that. He goes, John, 2 years sounds pretty good. But you know what? You did better than that.
This is the judge.
This is the judge. I'm like, and I'm just standing there, I'm like. So he goes, and then he finishes up. He goes, John, I would let you go with probation today.
Wow.
But I can't do that.
Oh, man. Yeah, my hopes up.
That's exactly, that was my internal voice as well. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
He goes, John, you did above and beyond, what we expected. We've seen a lot of people come and go and fail. You didn't do that. He goes, I'm going to give you a year and a day, and we're going to, put you in a minimum security, facility, and you're going to be out before you know it. But John, don't come back.
Don't ever come back.
Don't ever come back. And I'll never forget that look he gave me. And I was like, you got it, Judge. I ain't coming back. So that was it. Now my attorney comes up to me afterwards, and he goes, John, this is a win for us, And I'm like, yeah. but you know, the U.S. attorney doesn't like this, and she may appeal the case. But I don't want you to worry about that. You've got 45 days of self-surrender. You just enjoy yourself, but not too much. And I'm like, great.
45 days, and at that point, you're not living in the treatment center anymore?
Nope, I was done with the treatment center, so I went and lived with Mom for 45 days, which was interesting. I haven't lived with my mom in a long time, since high school, so, but it was fun. You know, it was just...
It's getting humbled in every way.
Every single way. So she had a little pool at the apartment, so I enjoyed that, hot tub and whatnot, so I was free for a while. Mm-hmm. And so day 44 of my freedom period there, I get a phone call from this attorney again. John, I just want to make sure you got all your affairs in order and I want to make sure everything's going okay. And, you know, you're going to be checking in tomorrow by 10 o'clock. Yep. Well, John, our worst fears have come true. They're going to appeal your case. And, John, they win 95% of the time.
My goodness.
So I'm like, how long is this going to take to figure all this out? He said it could take up to 18 months. So I'm like sitting there. I'm like, so I'm sentenced to a year and a day. What if I get out? He goes, well, then you go back. So
if they change to the appeal.
Yeah.
That's an incredible, you know, it's just those little things that our higher power will do, though.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You know, lo and behold, here's another test for you, John. You're not out of the water yet. And
maybe you needed that.
Right. So after that, you know, I went in the next day, checked into prison. That was interesting. And it was up in Yankton, South Dakota, which...
I remember driving by that. I went to school in Vermilion for a little bit.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Minimum security.
Very minimum security. So, you know, I claim to do hard federal time to my clients, but you know, once
they're going to see this, you know.
Yeah. Once they get the real story, then they know, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
So, but got up there about 2 months into it. You know, the transition up there was pretty simple. You know, there's a couple type of folks in prison. You know, there's folks that don't really care. We're going to go back to the same kind of things. And there's some folks that are genuinely trying to, you know, change. You know, they don't want to come back, and this is it for them. So I made sure to get in with the right population, and I'll never forget the first day, a couple highlights. The food. I love enchiladas, so first meal was an enchilada that was just the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. And
why is the food so big there?
I don't know. Like, they do it huge. Like, you enchilada, then you get salad and soup and a brick of ice cream, like a brick,
like straight out of the
square
box.
Like, yeah, they cut it with a knife. They don't scoop it out. They cut it with a knife. And so I was amazed. I was like, wow, this is great. So then I go over to the gym, you know, after dinner or whatever. We get some free time to do whatever. And I'm standing in the gym, and, of course, I'm sticking out like a sore thumb. You know, I've got my onesie on. You know, everybody else has got their little outfit on. And so this guy, he like, I mean, we just make eye contact, and he just starts beelining towards me. I'm like, oh, man, is this, you know, do I got to get ready? You know, I don't have a shank on me or anything. What do I do? And this guy comes up to me. He goes, man, you know, I just saw you across the gym here, and, you know, just something just, you know, told me, you know, to come talk to you, and you're a believer, aren't you? Yeah.
All right.
He gave me a big old hug, and he's like, man, we got church services on Sunday. We got Bible study on Wednesday. Let's get rolling, my friend.
And that's like right when you get in.
First day.
That's
I'm like,
fantastic.
Wow, this is amazing. You know, God's still with me. And so prison time was easy. But yet I still have this burden, you know, on my shoulders again, not knowing anything. So I got into alcohol and drug treatment while I was there. It wasn't, you know, I didn't have to do any of that, but I chose to. So every week I met with my counselor. I'd ask her, you know, do I have an out date yet? What's going on? Nope. Well, the week before, or it's Thanksgiving, I go and call my mom, you know, talk to family and whatnot. And she goes, well, I've got a letter here from the appeals court. This is like 2 months later. And she's like, I'm going to read it to you. And she starts reading it. And she goes, are you sitting down? I'm like, well, I can't. But, you know, there's no seating in here. But So she starts reading it. And she goes, honey, the case was dismissed.
Wow.
Yeah.
She wanted you to sit down because you're going to fall over from the good news.
Yeah. And I start bawling my eyes out. I mean, a year and a half of just stress and fear. And here it was, finally over, and 95% didn't apply to my situation. You know, God superseded that 95%.
It's incredible, man.
And here I stand. Next week I go to counseling. It was like, or 2 weeks later I go to counseling, and it was the last week before our holiday break, and my counselor was like, "Hey, you got an out date. When is it? When do you think it is?" Well, let's go with worst case scenario. How about like June? No, sooner than that. Let's go best case scenario. How about January? Nope, not that soon. So I went all the way back and then worked my way back, and it ended up being like February. So I only ended up being there for about 5.5 months. Then I go to this halfway house. I'm at the halfway house for another 4.5.
Is halfway house ordered by the courts?
Yeah, okay. It's pretty standard for those getting out. They want to get you acclimated back into your community and whatnot. At this time, the halfway house was in Council Bluffs. It was horrible.
Yeah.
But, I was out at least and had an opportunity to work and do some different things. So
what was horrible about it, though? Just you didn't like the living conditions?
The living conditions were beyond.
So you go from prison out free, and it was horrible.
Worse.
Because you didn't describe the prison that way.
No, yeah. My first day in this halfway house, I was like, I want to go back.
Wow.
It was that bad.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. There was 2 bathrooms for like 75 to 100 people. One had sewage problems. It was nasty.
Yeah.
So, but no, did my time there. Got out and lived with my brother for a little bit. Found a new home with a friend of mine that was working at I was working at the Hilton downtown, and she needed a roommate, so I decided to go there. She was 21 at the time, and that was a poor, impulsive decision on my part.
Yeah.
So that lasted all of a couple months, and then after that, moved in with a lady that was really stable, and lived with her, and yeah.
So all this time, I mean, in minimum security prison, you're still going to get the temptation to do drugs. I'm sure there was drugs there, or at least some sort of, even if it's manufactured liquor, whatever it was, that temptation was there. How'd you deal with that? You had your resources around you, but
sure, it was there. It was prevalent. People had cell phones. People had drugs. People had legal drugs. That they were selling, and it didn't appeal to me. I went in there again with the same kind of mindset that part of my life is over and it has to be over. I have yet to experience the fullness of this other side of life. So while I'm there, again, voluntarily keep myself busy. I worked a landscape crew there, so I'm mowing lawns, raking leaves, doing whatever, and doing voluntary treatment, AA meetings, and whatnot. I just wanted to stay occupied and busy. That really helped me out.
You continually were getting graced out, if you will, and it sounds like you didn't take that for granted. I mean, that moment when your mom reads you that letter on the phone, all that emotion coming out of you is because of your gratefulness.
Right. Yeah. It was a long journey, and God was nothing but gracious, is still gracious, in my life today, and not something I'll ever take for granted. There's just too much that's been put on my plate or put in front of me that I'm so grateful for.
It seems like everything in your life is growing.
Yeah.
Right. Your opportunities as a business owner. Just got a new house a couple weeks ago. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Talk to me about the first time you think you actually sat back and I want to help others. That's what I want to do for a living. Did that happen through all the drama, if you will, or does that happen later on as you're sober and just trying to find jobs?
Well, one of the first things I did was when I got out is I went back to Williams Prepared Place, because I knew, for me, I wanted to make sure that I still had that structure element, that I still had that, where I came to know God. I wanted that as a part of my recovery still, and the people there are fantastic. Pastor Bruce, Pastor Pat, loved them, and to no end. And so I went back there and kept myself occupied on the days that I could go or get out, and really just talking to people down there that were active in treatment or in the facility. And I started to grow passionate about it, and I kind of got to thinking about life, like what direction do I want to go in? I always wanted to be like a high school history teacher. I don't know if you remember Mr. Kenny, but he was
he was neighbors of mine. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, he was the guy for me in high school, and I always wanted to do that, psychology, teaching, and whatnot. Well, I think the school system tends to frown upon felons as being teachers and whatnot. So I kind of, made a different decision. Well, I had a great counselor when I was in treatment, Larry Duncan, and this man, when he spoke, you listened, and he just knew how to capture people, and on the edge of your seats, just
I think you have a little bit of that in you there.
Yeah.
I mean, when you speak, it's very interesting. So
Yeah, and if just learning from him, listening to him, listen to Pastor Bruce and Pastor Pat preach. I was hooked. I wanted to be in front of people. I wanted to speak. I wanted to, do as much as I could to give this thing back. I've always felt that, once we obtain sobriety, comfortable in sobriety, it's not a gift we keep. We've got to give it back.
that's a great outlook. And now you're doing it. And so how does it feel? Like, does that help keep you sober too? I mean, it sounds like you don't really think about doing it or going back. That's obviously now in your past. But how important is that in your recovery and other people around you? Do they kind of feel that same way?
Just hearing the stories every day, I mean, every single day, John, my life is, falling apart, or John, I messed up, or John, this is, I lost my kids, or things like that. It's just a constant reminder. There's no chance. There's nothing beneficial from that old way of living. There's no intrigue. There's no desire. There's no wants, needs. And I've learned in this new life that, there's still so much out there for me. There's still so much for me to accomplish, and I'm just getting started. So I feel like I accomplished everything I wanted to in the drug world. Had the money, had the cars, the girls, the whatever, and it all meant nothing, But in this life today, I have the opportunity to make some pretty big impacts, on people's lives and save lives, and even if it's just one, so be it.
Every day's meaningful to you now.
Yeah.
Now, some folks are going to, be watching from high school. Most likely this is going to be going out on Facebook. I do want you to take an opportunity to maybe talk to somebody that might be in the throes of addiction right now. Not anybody I just mean,
Right.
What could you try to say to them to just, whip them into shape, wake them up? I mean, sometimes it takes, a lot of times, probably 90% of the times, it takes the trouble. It takes the federal court system. It takes getting raided, for crying out loud, to have that moment. But you could save them before they have to go through all that. What can you tell them, man?
It ain't worth it. There's more out there. Whatever you got going on right now is fictitious. It's a dream. It's a pipe dream. It's not real, and you will lose it all. And somebody will take it all from you. And there's somebody out there right now that's planning your demise and will do anything to get what you have. It's not worth it. You've got people that love you, and if you don't, I'm sure you do. And get out there, connect with good people. But there's only a few ways this thing ends, death, jail, spiritual death. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, it's scary.
So, yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Now, tell me anything else you want to tell us about Halo. How could they look or learn more information about your organization?
So we don't have a website or anything like that. I'm kind of off the grid, and I like it that way. We are very much word of mouth, and I really, really love that. I don't know why.
Seems to be working out, though. How many clients you have right now?
We've got 44 clients, active clients right now.
How many counselors?
We've got 3 counselors over there, so we've all got some pretty decent-sized caseloads, some pretty decent-sized groups. I hired people that shared the same ideals that I have, and, we don't do anything different than any other treatment agency, but we're involved, we're passionate, and we give it, sorry if I can't cuss, but
I'll bleep that out.
Okay. But we care. We really, really care. And we want to help people. We're going to go to war with you.
Yeah.
As long as you're willing to stand side by side with us, let's do this thing. And, we're going to show you how to do it. And, that's it. We win with love, we win with heart, and we care.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And what's the back of your shirt say right now?
Make love, not meth.
You heard it here first, folks. Make love, not meth.
Right.
So you came down to tour Stevens Center today. We have an obvious connection through high school.
Yeah.
I showed you around the facility, gave you the nickel tour, told you a little bit about our history. Give me some of your first impressions of what you're seeing take place here at Stevens Center.
Amazing work, amazing structure, beautiful facility. Not at all what I thought it would be. You hear about a homeless shelter and you think the worst. People out on the corners doing this or that. You come in, dirty, smelly facility. Not at all the case here. Top-notch facility, top-notch people. people that care, and that really resonates with me because that's the kind of person I am. And you see that, you feel it, and there's nothing but love here.
We had a good opportunity to eat one of those meals down in the shelter, Chef Robert.
Gonna need a nap after this.
It was a heavy load of meat, potatoes, bread,
Right.
green beans.
Potato salad.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Smart Recovery. Real quick, what is that?
It's a community support meeting. It's SMART stands for Self-Management and Recovery Training. We're a mutual support meeting where through confidential and open discussion, we help each other and ourselves from any type of addictive behavior.
Okay.
So that's like kind of our preamble. So I've
Wow.
read that a million times.
Yeah.
But just a different approach. You hear about AA, NACA, CMA, and everything like that. We're not a 12-step approach. Smart Recovery is based on some evidence-based theory, some Albert Ellis rational emotive behavioral therapy and things like that, cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness skills, DBT work. Very much counseling theory approaches, to community support. And it's very open and always moving, always growing. There's new theories out there every day, on how to treat people with behavioral issues, addictive behaviors. And one of the highlights of it, one thing that I really, really love is that they don't believe in the use of labels. They say labels are for jars. That's kind of the way they lay that out in Smart Recovery. So when
many sayings in all these recoveries.
there is, yeah, everybody's got their jargon, but I love that people just come in and introduce themselves. Hi, I'm John.
Yeah.
That's me. I'm not John the addict. I'm not John the whatever. I'm just John. And I think there's quite a bit. There's a tremendous amount of power in that. You can detach the stigma from yourself. I am not the addictive behavior. I do have an addictive behavior, but that's not me. I'm a completely different person. I do have a tremendous amount of power. If given the opportunity or making the right decisions.
So it sounds like a mindset. Really is what Smart kind of helps you develop.
Correct.
Around, and there's so many different options, and I think to anybody that's in the throes of addiction now, if one doesn't work for you, try the next. If
Right.
one, because it's going to be about the person,
Right.
not necessarily the style.
Right. Yeah, and like I tell anybody, whatever works for you. I mean, we talk about 12 steps. You can't not talk about 12 steps in recovery. We talk about Smart Recovery. We talk about Buddhist-based approaches, meditation, things like that. If walking the dog keeps you sober, walk your dog every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever works for you, you've got to work the crap out of it because, I know when I was out there, I was doing anything and everything to pick up. It didn't matter. I spent 24/7 working on my drug life.
Yeah.
In recovery, the same, modality has to be applied. I've got to give this thing 24/7 and I've got to give it every ounce of energy I got.
Because you've already proven to yourself that you can do whatever it takes to get high.
Right.
And then once people realize, I can do whatever it takes to stay sober, it's kind of a game changer, I think.
Totally.
What a fascinating conversation and
Yeah.
story. I mean, I knew you may have gotten in a little bit of trouble through the grapevine or whatever, but I never knew the length of the
Right.
story and all that. That was just fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as you know, on this
Yeah.
podcast, we always close with one final question. What does Help Hope Heroes mean to you? It doesn't have to be about Steven Center or even Halo. It's like, what does Help Hope Heroes mean to John?
To John, Help Hope Heroes. Help, it's what I do. It's what I'm out here to do. It's what I was created for. That's my mission as well. Hope, give it a chance, take a moment, ask some questions, reach out, talk to somebody. There is a better life out there. There is a shining light that's waiting for you if you seek it out. In heroes, we're all heroes, in this place. And to overcome something so destructive, so deadly, we can be nothing less than heroes in this field.
God, that's so well put. All right, I do this for a living. Don't think I could have come up with that. So nicely done.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming down today.
Thank you.
We're here with the Help Hope Heroes podcast,
Steven Center, for me, they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
recorded live at a homeless shelter.
I basically reinvented myself with the Steven Center.
Our clients are the homeless, the addicted, those in poverty.
We fight the good fight.
Tear down some stigmas.
They taught me those life skills that I didn't have.
What does Help Hope Heroes mean to you?
If you come to the Steven Center, you will be changed in a really good way.